What did we discuss in our previous class?
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8 of which book? Okay. How many chapters are there in Bhagavad Gita? 16. Something to wake all of you all up. Make you all start speaking. So what did we discuss in our previous class?
Basically, starting of discussing with the 5 primary vessels.
Thankfully, we are not standing like Arjuna in the Kurukshetra battle. Krishna, what did you tell? I forgot. The Kurukshetra people will be waiting full time because of our memory. So we were. Kiran, did you want to make a point?
Oh, sorry, I was just saying we discussed the 5 primary vessels.
The 5 primary rasas.
That's where we started.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we discussed Ananya Bhakti, Ekagra Chitta, one-pointedness.
Okay. So we discussed about the importance of association. Anyone remembers that or no?
That point was discussed in terms of the snake and ladder game.
Correct.
And without progress in Bhakti, one might fall down.
And then we discussed about the Kalpa. One day of Brahma is 1000 into 4 yugas. And we discussed that even Lord Brahma's duration is insignificant as compared to eternal time. Just like bubbles in the ocean. We saw that. And we also saw that even Brahmaloka is impacted by time. We saw how the souls go into a state of Shushupti, into the body of Mahavishnu, those souls which still have a desire to enjoy, which are still not liberated. We saw that. What else? Okay, then we talked about the 2 essential components of yoga. We were talking the instructions which Lord Krishna is giving from verses 23 to 26. We saw pertains to Jnana, Karma and Ashtanga yogis. But the common platform across all this is what?
Bhakti.
Foot try. Celibacy and detachment. You cannot go wrong. But celibacy and detachment. Yes, you are right in one sense. Bhakti is a common thread. But celibacy and detachment are essential for any type of yoga. Okay. Then what else?
Also discuss the passing away of the yogi at what time of the year, what time of the day it should be, and if it applies to Bhakti yogis or not.
Okay.
We also discussed that we should have healthy fear of Maya.
Yeah. So where did we discuss up to which verse? Anyone remember? I think 26 we finished.
26 we finished.
27, 28 are remaining. So we also saw that one leaves one's body at an auspicious time as prescribed by Lord Krishna here. Then the fire god takes him up to a certain point and hands him over to the next demigod. Right? And then such a soul passes through segment after segment until the soul reaches Brahman platform.
We haven't done that.
We haven't done
Are you sure?
Yeah.
We haven't done.
20.
You wanted to do 25 to 28.
You wanted to
You
do
wanted to
from
do
20.
23rd we had actually.
Last 4 verses you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Does any one person remember how much?
Yes.
Where we stopped telling?
24.
24 you wanted
24 we
to
have to
redo
start.
actually.
Sounds like the parliament was almost. One person.
24 you wanted to
24. You agree? Disagree?
Yes, Prabhu.
You agree? 24. How many of you disagree? Most of you don't know. That's the truth. Alright, so we will do 24. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that Supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery God. In the light, at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. Ganeshwar Prabhu. .24 389.
Purport. When the fire, light, day and the fortnight of the moon are mentioned, it is to be understood that over all of them there are various presiding devotees who make arrangements for the passage of the soul. At the time of death, the mind carries one on the path to a new life. If one leaves the body at the time of designated to go either accidentally or by arrangement, it is possible for him to attain the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. Mystics who are advanced in yoga practice can arrange the time and place to leave the body. Others have no control. If by accident they leave at an auspicious moment, then they will not return to the cycle of birth and death. But otherwise, there is every possibility that they will have to return. However, for the pure devotee in Krishna consciousness, there is no fear of returning, whether he leaves the body at an auspicious or inauspicious moment, by accident or arrangement.
It sounds a little unfair. Krishna is also, from the purport, if I don't understand properly, it sounds like he's running a lottery system here. By accident, if you leave, you can still get up. What is this going on?
You can still?
I mean, does it apply to a yogi who leaves by accident, or anyone who leaves by accident at the right time doesn't have to come back to the circle of birth and death? Because the way Prabhupada writes, it sounds like anyone.
See, this is it has to be understood carefully again. So, on one hand, we have to understand that there are no accidents. So, which means a person leaving at an auspicious time could also be largely impacted by that person's karma. It is time to leave at that auspicious time. However, yogis have, at the end of the day, what is death? Death is the soul leaving the body. The yogis can get into their body and leave the body at their will. So in that sense, the yogi could have attained a level of expertise in yoga by which the yogi can decide when to leave this body. If you read Radhana Swami Maharaja's journey home, you will find that one of the yogis, he has left his body and then they call the doctors, right? You were discussing the other day. And the doctors come and check and they declare him that he has left the body, and then the yogi tells that I will come back after some time into the same body. So again he returns back to the body. Something like that. So people can practice that. So if a person does not have good karma, then a person could have an inauspicious manner in which the person dies, or could leave at an inauspicious moment. That is also possible.
So it will be an accident for him, but it was destiny or pre-planned for him anyway.
Yeah.
And from his own perspective, it was not planned and unknown.
Yeah. But one cannot say that I will commit suicide during Uttarayan time and I will go back to Godhead. Why? Because suicide means that you are why does one commit suicide? One commits suicide because one thinks that I do not accept what Providence has ordained for me. I don't accept that. So I'm going to circumvent that in a very smart way by ending myself. Right? Because the end of this body is the end of existence. So then if some misery, if I am having a series of miseries in my life, in order to avoid further misery, then I'll end my life. So that is called as suicide. But karma is not for the body. Karma is attached to in one sense, karma is like, like a telephone. SIM card is part of the telephone. So all your good and bad, the phone is not recording. The SIM card. When you take that SIM card, whatever is there will start operating on the next phone seamlessly, like that. So soul is like the SIM card, if you like. Though actually in one sense soul cannot be contaminated, but we are talking about the conditioning on top of the soul. So in that sense, the soul is having that karma, in that sense. Now what I am trying to do is that because I don't have this knowledge, I think the karma is for the body. I don't understand that body is not karma, but body is a result of karma. But I think that body is karma, therefore I commit suicide. Gone, everything over. But we understand that there are two types of bodies. One is a gross body and one is a subtle body. So you cannot kill the subtle body by suicide. Neither can you kill the soul by any means whatever. Right? So your subtle body is still there and your soul is there along with the subtle body. Now what you have done is you have tried to end your providence, which is Krishna at the end of the day, indirectly through the governance system has given you a body by which you have to last out that karma. Now we are acting smart and trying to cut short that process, but Providence doesn't pardon you for that, because that karma, then when you go to the next body, you will anyway have to undergo. That is number one. Number two is that because you tried to circumvent, you have got now new
additional
problems because of that. So the soul still has desires in the heart, okay, but it doesn't have a body to enjoy them. Then the soul is in the form of a ghost. So the soul doesn't get bhuta or whatever you can say. So that, so this doesn't apply to those kind of deaths. So karma can ordain, or yogi can leave the body at that time.
Sudden accident, sudden accident.
हो सकता है. But sudden accident बोलो तो karma.
It's saying that body doesn't, soul doesn't get the next body.
Soul doesn't
get the next body because of somehow accident happened. We have some lot of instance. People are wandering in that area. You can see those people already.
So we don't know what kind of karma they have.
Yeah, because they cannot get the next body. So when they have accidents, they will see why I died. They have a desire to know how I died. Because they have no mean. And they cannot go next body. They stay.
Could be.
There's a desire in the end of the life. They have desire. Who hit me? Why did somebody hit me? So that desire is there. He will not be able to get next body.
About this accident and arrangement, my understanding is when Srila Prabhupada is explaining this, he is talking in the context of yogis and not, like Sajid Prabhu is speaking like if it's an accident then it's like unfair. It's actually the way he's writing the grammar, he's talking about the
He's not talking about a physical accident.
Yeah, he's talking about the yogis because he's saying, for Jnana yogi, he wants to attain Brahma Jyoti. If he's so advanced, he will be expert in choosing the time when to leave the body, right? But if he's not so advanced, and that's when he's talking about the others, if they're not so advanced, they might not choose the right moment to leave the body, but by accident they might happen to leave at that time, and they'll also attain Brahma Jyoti.
Yeah, that accident could be that they had a disease and then they left the body at that time.
Yeah.
We don't know. They had an illness and they left the body at that time. That is also called accident. Accident means something which was not in your control. In that sense, Prabhupada is meaning the word accident.
And it also, if I'm not wrong, it doesn't mean like the vehicle means leaving at that particular point in time will not go back, not go to Brahma Jyoti. Although it is by accident they are leaving the body at that time, because they are not entitled to go there in any case. Isn't that right?
Correct. So I get it. So others meaning less advanced.
Other meaning less advanced. Yeah, we had this same discussion yesterday.
Prabhu, what happens if a very simple person leaves his body in a very auspicious home?
Same question. It's not the way answered.
What happens? That's what they answered. So, a sinful person leaves a body by accident. Accident means not accident, but accidentally leaves his body in an auspicious time. Like that. So, the Shastras clearly say that one cannot go back to Godhead without bhakti. So, this person has not developed bhakti. So, Vaikuntha is ruled out. Okay. Neither has this person developed the realization that he is not the body, he is the soul, because of which he was sinful. Therefore, if you apply the higher Shastra, it's not possible. Here it is just given in one sense saying that dying at this moments are specifically very auspicious. For someone who is not leading a sinful life. Obviously, if a person is very sinful, then obviously he has to, there is no way that a sinful person can attain Brahman just because accidentally that person left the body. However, having said that, if the Lord ordains for that person to leave at that time, then who can stop it? Then nobody. He can pardon anyone he wants, and he can give anyone any benediction, regardless of whether they deserve or don't deserve. He can overrule karma. But I have never heard that a sinful person leaves his body by chance during auspicious moment and therefore goes back to Godhead. I have not heard this anywhere. So
I think this.
But we could ask Manu Maharaj this question.
This question should be pretty much invalid, because anyone who is sinful will not really be living with God.
Yeah,
that should not
accidentally
be.
Prabhupada says. That's why we are all trying to discuss around that word accident. By chance, someone leaves.
Why I asked the body, because years back, what happened is that we were on when I think Saddam Hussein, I don't know if you heard, when he was, hanged. That day we were in London, and that was actually Vaikuntha Ekadashi, and we were observing Vaikuntha Ekadashi in the morning, and I was in London. I remember I switched on the news. The first news is that he was hanged. So I was to my husband. I told Samu that what a sinful person leading the world in such a auspicious day. So I asked him, that is how my...
what was the answer you got?
I don't know, I had to look, I asked.
But let's put it in the car park. It's a good question. Let's ask, if a sinful person leaves the body on an auspicious time or day, then what is the destination for such a person?
Prabhu, Jamila was given second chance. So like that.
But Saddam Hussein didn't get second chance. In fact, he got many chances, but he didn't get one more chance after he was hanged. So, कहाँ chance मिला? एक घंटे के बाद गया वो. I don't know आपको second chance देगा तो problem हो जाएगा. No, Ajamila is a different pastime. Here we are talking about.
Not about Saddam Hussein.
Because Ajamila towards the end of his. You are not talking about Saddam. I am talking about Saddam. Ajamila towards the end of his pastime uttered the word Narayana. So whole pastime was centered around that. Whereas here there was nothing like that. Saddam Hussein might have been cursing, the government, US government, and he was hanged. So I don't think he uttered the word Narayana. At least I have not heard of that.
It also depends on person's consciousness as well. It also depends on person's consciousness, what he was thinking at the time.
Yeah, good. Because that is again Sastri. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. At the moment the soul leaves the body, whatever consciousness that person has, he will attain that destination without fail. So then, so that is Lord Krishna himself is saying that. So if you see that, that's where it's very clear that such people are very unlikely to attain a higher destination just because of the prevalence of auspicious time.
One more question, Prabhuji.
Again, the question is, if it is an auspicious time in one part of the earth, it may be a different time at another part of the earth. We don't know. That is also there.
So one question, Prabhu, and the meaning is during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. So just my question is, as per this thing, as per Vedas, the sun travels, or what? Could you explain about this?
Okay, it's not relevant to this section of the Bhagavad Gita, but I'll just it will suffice to tell this much, that the material conception, material science says that the earth revolves around the sun. Okay, whereas Vedic science says that the sun revolves, not the other planets.
Sun revolves around the earth.
Around so many planets. Sun is the one which is actually revolving. That is a Vedic conception, which you can understand by reading 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in this purport, Gurujan Prabhu writes that this particular discussion is relevant only for the Jnana Yogi. If that answers many questions for you. This is relevant for the Jnana Yogi. So when one leaves the body by this method, it is said that Agni takes him up to a certain point, Agni Dev, and hands him over to the next demigod. Why Agni Dev? Because so Agni Dev takes over and hands him over to the next demigod. Then the next Devata hands him over to the next Devata. Like that he passes through segment after segment, it is mentioned, until he reaches Brahman. Okay. However, for a devotee, it does not matter. Because for a devotee, the Lord personally intervenes. And a pure devotee anyway does not have any other desire other than service to the Lord. For example, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj left the world in an accident. Nobody imagined it. It was quite shocking for all of us. But for such a person, who is an eternal servant of Srila Prabhupada, whose life mission was nothing else than serving Srila Prabhupada, for such a person, his disappearance is understood to be very auspicious. In fact, the place where he disappeared, I think they have built something. You can call it as a holy place if you like. A Goswami has left his body. So for a devotee, it actually doesn't matter. In fact, there's not much spoken about, but from what I heard, Srila Prabhupada's very intimate disciple, Vishnujan Swami, who is also the Shiksha Guru of Shankarshan Das Adhikari Maharaj. Maharaj often called Vishnujan Swami. He was one of the topmost Kirtaniyas, early Kirtaniyas in ISKCON. And Vishnujan Swami has made so many devotees. But somewhere that pastime was enacted by which he chose to leave his body by giving up his body in the confluence of Prayag or somewhere, I think. He gave up his body like that. Which technically you can call it as suicide, if you like. But Chaitanya Charitamrita quotes that one more person similarly left the body. Who was that? Chota Haridas. Chota Haridas also left the body like that. But then it is said that Mahaprabhu revived him and took him back to Godhead. Like that. So we cannot say the same for devotees. We cannot compare someone who is frustrated with material life and who is jumping into the lake to someone who is highly spiritually realized, who feels who in the mood of humility is enacting something like that. We can't compare, put both on the same platform.
In one sense, we can say that Vishnu Swami was actually following Srila Prabhupada's orders, because in that pastime, Srila Prabhupada said, if you don't do this, you should go and commit suicide.
What was the question he had asked? I don't remember that.
No, it is pastime. The part of the Prabhupada was explaining that if one, even after accepting sannyas, in a brahmachari ashram, if he thinks of his past, like a family life, if you think of his like ex-wife, then it is sinful, he has to go and commit. This is for the Chaitanya the same sugar the past. So Vishnu Swami heard that and he took that as the instruction. He took the instruction literally. The instruction and he went and committed.
But he didn't actually stay the full time, he heard only this, that you should go and commit suicide. And then he left, but Prabhupada completed after that, but you don't need to do that.
You don't need to.
Okay. So he didn't stay for that statement to come across.
Actually, the way you mentioned it, I think the Chaitanya Charitamrita pastime, Chota Haridas comes and sings Kirtans to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Similarly, Prabhupada said that after Vishnujan Maharaj left, he used to come and sing Kirtans for Srila Prabhupada. So that's what Srila Prabhupada himself said. So, like confirming the way he compared with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime. So it's exactly the same pastime.
Yeah. So essentially, a devotee's departure is not governed by material laws. That's the conclusion. even for that matter, a Jnana Yogi also attains a higher destination. So whatever material laws are only applicable for people who have never developed Sambandha Gyan, nor Abhideya Gyan, nor Prayer Gyan. For them, Krishna comes as death. And for devotees, death comes as Krishna. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet, but again comes back. According to Vedic opinion, there are two ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back, but when one passes in darkness, he returns. Although the devotees know these two paths, O Arjuna, they are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. Want to read another book? 27. Purport.
Krishna is here advising Arjuna that he should not be disturbed by the different paths the soul can take when leaving the material world. A devotee of Supreme Lord should not worry whether he will depart by arrangement or by accident. A devotee should be firmly established in Krishna consciousness and chant Hare Krishna. He should know that concern over either of these two paths is troublesome. The best way to be observed in Krishna consciousness is to be always devoted in his service, and this will make one's path to the spiritual kingdom safe, certain and direct. The word Yoga Yukta is especially significant in this verse. One who is firm in yoga is constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness in all his activities. Sri Rupa Goswami advises,
Anasaktasya Vishaya Yathartham Upayunjataha Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagyam Uchare. This is the verse.
One should be unattached in material affairs and do everything in Krishna consciousness. By this system, which is called Yoga Vairagya, Yukta Vairagya, one attains perfection. Therefore, the devotee is not disturbed by these descriptions, because he knows that his passage to Supreme Abode is guaranteed by devotional service.
So what are the points here?
Devotees don't need to worry about time and this. Just concentrate on our service.
Don't worry, chant Hare Krishna and be happy.
This purport answers all the previous doubts which we were raising in the previous verses.
So just on the previous verse that says one leaving daytime and darkness, light and darkness, is it talking about day and night or the night and night?
It's talking about one living in daylight is enlightenment and ignorance. In that sense, it's not. But devotees don't care about anything. Devotees are always interested in serving the Lord.
One of the characteristics of devotional service is Shubhada, so auspiciousness. So one who is engaged in the devotional service, Prabhupada said that one chants Hare Krishna, so mentioned here since the devotee. So if he is engaged in the devotional service, then everything is auspicious for him. So that's why in general devotees supposed to not to worry about performing any ceremony. They just, as per one of the Madhya Maharaja says, even while welcoming deities, so they just choose a day and then say Hare Krishna Sankirtan is there, it's auspicious. So that's called invoking auspiciousness. You don't need to worry about time and date.
About verse 26, when Krishna is saying, for the jnani, who is living the body in the light of enlightenment, and he attains Brahma Jyoti, and he does not come back. Explain this. Sorry? See, 26, Krishna said, now there are two ways of passing. One is One was for the Jnani and the other one was for the Karmi, right? We saw it in the preceding bases. But then for the Karmi, he goes to heavenly planets and comes back, gets understandable. But for the Jnani, when he goes to Brahma Jyoti, he does not come back. So that means from Brahma Jyoti, he goes back to spiritual world, going to higher planets.
So we have to understand that when one passes in light, and this will be explained in 9th chapter. It's setting the context for 9th chapter. It's almost as if preempting a question, but it is setting the context in the 9th chapter. When you say one passes in light, it actually means when one is in full awareness of the absolute truth, not aware of the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth. So if you see it in the context of what is coming in the 9th chapter, then you will understand it in that way. Because we are now slowly migrating from the Jnana Mishra Bhakti section to the Ananya Uttama Bhakti section, pure Bhakti section. So when Lord Krishna is saying and Prabhupada is writing the purport, when you are talking about in complete light, that means in highest understanding of the absolute. Then there is no coming back. Now, even if you see a person who is a Jnana Yogi, which is your question. So if it's in the context of a Jnana Yogi, how to understand? We have already seen it in the past that regardless of any yoga, the common theme is what? Bhakti. Right? So Jnana Yoga will also have the component of Bhakti. Bhakti is inevitable. So, but however the impersonal feature of the Lord is now more attractive than the personal feature of the Lord. So the Jnana Yogi lands up in Brahman. But it is also mentioned, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sochati na kachati. And Sama Sarveshu Bhutishu Mak Bhaktim Labate Param. So from that Brahman platform, then it is easy to attain Bhakti. So in that sense, it is a much more conducive platform to attain Bhakti. Yes, we may tend to look down upon impersonal Brahman realization because we are actually hammered all the time saying that personal realization is highest, Brahman realization is subordinate. But if you actually compare with our lives, then actually Brahman realization is far ahead. Because at least a Brahmavadi is not attracted to material sense enjoyment, which even as practicing devotees we may be. We may be 40% Krishna consciousness, 60% attached to material sense gratification. So, but the good part is that our desire is not Brahman, and that is what makes a major difference. In terms of our material attachments, they may be more than a person who is desiring impersonal liberation. But in terms of the goal, because our goal ultimately is to attain the service of Krishna, then that goal itself takes care of so many imperfections for us. Okay. But for a Jnana Yogi, he goes there, he sees the impersonal, but he cannot remain there for a long time. Two options are there. The desire for sense gratification either attracts the person to the material world, or from there the inquisitiveness to see beyond the Hiranyamayana Patrena will lead that person to then internally seek out the source of that light as Paramatma. So the Jnana Yogi will now start moving to Dhyana, and then having attained the Paramatma, then the Jnana Yogi now has had darshan, and now he wants a relationship, and therefore Paramatma is the Chaitya Guru, will lead him to a spiritual master, and then the person will eventually become a devotee. But when such a person becomes a devotee, he will not be a neophyte devotee. He will come across, even from birth, he will be someone who is a great devotee because he has come through Brahman, Paramatma, rather than someone who is probably been on LSD and been just brought into Krishna consciousness. It's not like that. So such a person will show definitely lot of devotional traits right from childhood, and then very swiftly such a person will take to the process because of the past. Okay. So in that sense, a person who has gone to that light normally will go back to Godhead. It's rare that he will want to come back and enjoy the material world.
But probably for a person in Brahma-Jyoti has to come down to earth.
If for going back to Godhead, or even otherwise also. After a very long time they get bored. There's nothing to do in Brahma.
Anyway, the Vaya medium is through the material. They have to come back and practice Bhakti and take special from the Guru and then go back.
There is no entrance to Golok or Vaikuntha without Bhakti. Bhaktya maam abhijanati yavan yash chashmi tatvata tato maam tato tunatya vishyate tadarata. There is no other way. It is only by Bhakti that one can go back from this spiritual way.
Then how do we understand the pastime of the Chatur Kumaras? They were in Brahman and they got the smell of Tulsi and they started following. Was it an arrangement or?
Pastime. But they got attached to Tulsi. The moment you get attached to Tulsi Marani, that is Bhakti. Radha Krishna Seva Pao Ye Abhidashi.
But in Brahman is...
Tulsi Marani can avoid that.
But how do we understand that in Brahman there was smell of Tulsi coming in? Because it is... So then I asked the question if it was
there was no David Jones there. So no perfume was coming. I don't know how it was coming there. They wandered and then they smelled the Tulsi at the lotus feet of the Lord.
Prabhu, as far as I understand, 4 Kumaras, they actually traveled to Vaikuntha.
Yeah.
From Brahman, how did they enter Vaikuntha? That's what his question. See, they entered Vaikuntha and smelled the Tulsi. No, he's saying, how did they get entry into Vaikuntha? I don't know.
They didn't enter, right? They didn't enter, right? They were not allowed to enter.
Jai Vijay stopped them at the gate, but the Lord came and apologized.
And then he took them.
You cannot stop them. So I don't know.
The reason could be they are the
car park.
They are the Manasa Putras of the Brahma. They are not other human beings. They are manifested from the Brahma himself.
Who?
The Kumaras.
Okay.
So they have special entry.
They are green card jail channel.
Because all the Manasa Putras, including the Rishis, Saptarshis and Lord Shiva and Lord Sarat Kumaras.
Because they are Mahajanas, no?
Yeah, they're all different than other people. So
it's a pastime, I think. That's all I can. I always reconcile myself thinking it's a pastime, and I think it's a pastime. If I remember correctly, it's a pastime. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme, eternal abode.
This verse is a summation of the 7th and 8th chapters, which particularly deal with Krishna consciousness and devotional service. One has to study the Vedas under the guidance of the spiritual master and undergo many austerities and penance while living under his care. A brahmachari has to live in the home of the spiritual master just like a servant, and he must beg alms for food door to door and bring them to the spiritual master. He takes food only under the master's order, and if the master neglects to call the student for food that day, the student fasts. These are some of the Vedic principles for observing brahmacharya. After the student studies the Vedas under the master for some time, at least from age 5 to 20, he becomes a man of perfect character. Study of the Vedas is not meant for recreation or armchair speculators, but for the formation of character. After this training, the brahmachari is allowed to enter into household life and marry. When he is a householder, he has to perform many sacrifices so that he may achieve further enlightenment. He must also give charity according to the country. time and candidate discriminating among charity in goodness, in passion and in ignorance as described in Bhagavad Gita. Then after retiring from household life, upon accepting the order of Vanaprastha, he undergoes severe penance, living in forests, dressing with tree bark, not shaving, etc. By carrying out the orders of Brahmacharya, household life, Vanaprastha, and finally sannyasa, one becomes elevated to the perfectional stage of life. Some are then elevated to the heavenly kingdoms, and when they become even more advanced, they are liberated in the spiritual sky, either in the impersonal Brahma Jyotir or in the Vaikuntha planets or Krishna Loka. This is the path outlined by Vedic literatures. The beauty of Krishna consciousness, however, is that by one stroke, by engaging in devotional service, one can surpass all the rituals of the different orders of life. The words idam vidvat indicate that one should understand the instructions given by Sri Krishna in this chapter and the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. One should try to understand these chapters not only by scholarship or mental speculation, but by hearing them in association with devotees. Chapter 7 through chapter 12 are the essence of Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 and the last 6 chapters are like coverings for the middle 6 chapters, which are especially protected by the Lord. If one is fortunate enough to understand Bhagavad Gita, especially these middle 6 chapters in the association of devotees, then his life at once becomes glorified beyond all penance, sacrifices, charities, speculation, etc. For one can achieve all the results of these activities simply by Krishna consciousness. One who has little faith in Bhagavad Gita should learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee, because in the beginning of the 4th chapter, it is stated clearly that Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees. No one else can perfectly understand the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee of Krishna, not from mental speculators. This is a sign of faith. When one searches for a devotee and fortunately gets a devotee's association, one actually begins to study and understand Bhagavad Gita. By advancement in association of the devotee, one is placed in devotional service, and this service dispels all one's misgivings about Krishna or God and Krishna's activities from pastimes, name and other features. After these misgivings have been perfectly cleared away, one becomes fixed in one's study. Then one relishes the study of Bhagavad Gita and attains the state of feeling always Krishna consciousness. Krishna conscious. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. This highest perfectional stage of life enables the devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual sky, Golok Vrindavan, where the devotee becomes eternally happy. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 8th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of attaining the Supreme.
Whatever the other yogi gets to the path of jnana or dhyana or karma, by performing bhakti, you get the benefits of all those other yogas.
So there is a verse, does anyone have internet here? Wi-Fi? Can you check this verse? Aho bhatas swapacho tegariya. Did you tell this verse before? Srimad Bhagavatam. Aho bhatas swapacho tegariyan. What is the next line? Vartate nama tubhyam. Tepus tapaste Brahmanuchur Shashnurarya Nama Grinanti Ete. Something like that, this verse is.
333.
Can I read that verse? Yeah. Aho Bhata Swapacho. Yeah. Go ahead.
Look in college.
Which one is it?
What happened? It's not coming up?
Loading.
Reading is a problem.
Yeah.
Can you read?
Let him read.
Give
verse number? 333. Prabhuji.
No, I'll show you.
Aho Bhata Swapacho Togariyan Yaha Jivagre Vartate Nama Tubhyam Tepus Tapaste Juhu Shashnurarya Brahmanuchur Nama Grinanti Yete. Let me read this for you. Swapacho means what? A person who eats a dog eater. Oh my Lord, a person, please hear carefully. Oh my Lord, a person who is chanting your holy name. O my Lord, a person who is chanting your holy name, although born of a low family, like that of a Chandala. Chandala means what? Although such a person, even if a person is chanting the holy names, even if he is born in a Chandala family, is situated on the highest platform of self-realization. So whoever is chanting in this room is situated on the highest platform of self-realization. We may not realize that, but that is what the scriptures say. We may not say that in our humility, but the scriptures say that. O my Lord, a person who is chanting your holy name, although born of a low family, Chandala, dog eater, is situated on the highest platform of self-realization. The next line says, such a person must have performed all kinds of penances and sacrifices according to the Vedic rituals and studied the Vedic literatures many times after taking his bath in all holy places of pilgrimage. So such a person who has come to the platform of chanting has done all these things. Such a person is considered to be the best of the Aryan family. So therefore, a person who has, so this is a praman from Srimad Bhagavatam. I think it is told by Mother Devahuti to Kapila, if I am not mistaken. So she is saying that a person who is to come to the platform of the holy name, of chanting the holy name in this lifetime, one must have tremendous amount of Bhakti Unmukhi Shukriti in the previous lifetimes. Of course, I mean, we should not feel very proud about that fact. Although I had a lot of Bhakti Unmukhi, it looks like I was a saintly person. Yeah. Walk with pride, the chadar like. So we have to also understand that Srila Prabhupada also made a statement to the hippies that I made your qualification. So ours could also be causeless mercy. What is causeless mercy called as? Causeless mercy. It's got no reason. So causeless mercy of Srila Prabhupada. That could also be there. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have all had that past. But yes, there could have been something. Maybe some desire was there which brought us into this. Or it could be also that some of us may have had that kind of a past. Yeah. Or maybe most of us have. I don't know. Just that after hearing this we should not feel proud. That's why I am saying all these things.
Otherwise, after coming to Melbourne, we won't be doing this for sure. So there must be something.
There must be something.
Except taking birth in India is very auspicious. Yeah. People only take birth, they have performed some past crime. So that's because Prabhupada had given causeless mercy to that people. But then that mercy came to us as well. Yes. So, I mean,
there is some piety in taking birth in the holy land of India. Yeah. Don't ask me Dawood Ibrahim. I don't know. I don't know that.
He's gone to Pakistan anyway now, he's not here.
But he was born in India, so something. So I don't know how it works. But one thing is there which I have heard, so I can tell confidently because I have heard from senior acharyas that Bharata Bhumi is giving you an opportunity. But it doesn't mean that simply because one is born in Bharata Bhumi, one will utilize that opportunity and, it's like, for example, I recommended a person for a job. If the person doesn't work, he'll be kicked out. I can only take that person to that extent that I can recommend and get that person a job. After that, he has to perform also. So there is a facility which is given to that person. The person has to utilize that facility.
They have given the chance to utter the name of Ram. They every day do Ram, Ram, Ram. That's what it has been given to them. Then by any intensity they are chanting. You mean Ram, Ram, Haram.
Yeah.
You say meat is, we don't eat haram meat.
Yeah.
Haram.
Yeah.
Hare Ram. Yeah. They are chanting all the time, many times over a day. So they are chanting the name Maybe they don't understand.
Yeah. So I have already explained this in the class before. Anyone remembers? I have already discussed this in the class, in the previous class. So there is a shop in shopping mall in South Africa. I don't know anyone from South Africa here. It's called as Hyperama. It's a shopping mall. So many people keep on saying, I'm going to shop in Hyperama. Like that. So by saying that, they have inadvertently chanted the name of Rama. So it is said that such person will get benefit because the holy name will do its job, whether you take it consciously or subconsciously or part of some other word or whatever. So the name is going to give its effect. However, it is mentioned, there are some other people who are impersonals, Mayavadis, who also chant then Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, they also chant like that. Correct? So if these people who are saying Hyperama can get benefit, can the Mayavadis also get benefit when they chant Rama, Rama, Rama? No. That is the explanation that was given. This is given by my Bhakti Sastri teachers, His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Bhagavad Swami, who we studied under him in Toronto, 2004 when we did Bhakti Sastri. So I was hearing a series of lectures which he was giving in Chowpatty temple to all the brahmacharis. In that he gives this very beautiful example. He says that the holy name will give benefits under two situations. Either it is uttered with bhakti, best, it will give effect, or it is uttered in ignorance without envy. Without envy. Now when you say Hyperama, you are not envious of Rama, so it will give benefit. But a Mayavadi, when he chants Rama, what is he thinking? By chanting this, I am only Rama, Rama only me, all are one. Right? So he is marginalizing the position of Bhagavan. So because there is envy, then it comes under the category of aparad. And therefore what happens? The holy name will not give its result. Because aparad means band. You have a lot of bank account, but you cannot access that. So you have no access to that because of aparad. That is why Bahu Janma Kari Yadi Shravana Kirtanam Bhutana Paye. So this is the explanation that Maharaj gives. Is it clear? So Mayavadi ko nahi milta hai. Also, of course, one of my god brothers, he said that a clock which has stopped working also shows the right time twice a day. So मतलब कुछ है ही नहीं, लेकिन फिर भी कभी कभी हो जाता है, या कुछ बेनिफिट मिल जाएगा उसको, बट है नहीं, कुछ दम नहीं है ऐसा इसमें, थोड़ा बहुत बेनिफिट मिलेगा twice a day. Okay, so this is the conclusion of the 8th chapter. So Lord Krishna is essentially saying that a devotee need not go through all this process of dhyana, jnana. Don't have to worry too much about principles of karma yoga, etc., etc. By performing bhakti, which means what? By dovetailing all our desires, by dovetailing all our activities for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna, then a devotee can easily go back to the spiritual world. So Sammam Bona means a devotee doesn't have to think too much about the technicalities of yoga and break his head. Simply chant and go back to Godhead. That is the Sammam Bonam of chapter 8. However, one important point is given here, that when one searches for a devotee and fortunately gets a devotee association, one actually begins to study and understand Bhagavad Gita. By advancement in the association of devotees, one is placed in devotional service, and this service dispels all one's misgivings. Of course, what we'll do is we'll hear more about this in the next verse, which is chapter 9 verse, because there is a logical continuation. More things will be clear when we do the next chapter, first text, because it's a continuation.
There is no Founder-Acharya Prabhu for 9.
Pardon me?
There is no Founder-Acharya for 9.
There is. I'm going to tell that now.
Story time.
Story time. Okay, so we will migrate from chapter 8 now to chapter 9. I wanted to end chapter 8 last time, but because this conversation was remaining, so we'll go to chapter 9, which is called as the most confidential knowledge. Huh? Yeah, Falashruti is coming. Everyone wants Falashruti. In fact, my mother also is telling me that the most interesting part is Falashruti. She'll be hearing this. Yesterday only she told me. Falashruti you will say. So, chapter 9 called as the most confidential knowledge. Raja Guhyam.
What's the origin of Falashruti?
Huh? Origin of Falashruti is from Gita Mahatmya. Okay, so Falashruti of chapter 9. Why should one hear chapter 9? In a town called Mahismati. What is the name of the town? Mahismati. Very good. Okay, which is on the bank of the river? No. Narmada. Okay. What is the name of the town? Mahismati. Which is on the bank? This will come in your exam. 5 marks. There was a Brahmana called as Madhava.
Okay, easy to remember.
Okay. Now this Brahmana whose name was Madhava, he was very strict in Vedic injunctions. And as a result of that, he was a very nice Brahmana. He was doing a lot of sacrifices and he received a lot of charity. Nice Brahmana only, no problem. Now with all this accumulated wealth that he got from all this charity, he did a fire sacrifice. When he was setting up, when he was about to begin the fire sacrifice, as a part of the fire sacrifice, a goat was to be slaughtered. Or not slaughtered in the sense, slaughtered is not the right word, a goat was to be offered to the fire. Like that. So what he was doing is, before he was offering, this Brahmana whose name was What you do? On the banks of river Narmada. Brahmana's name? Madhava. Not goat. Goat was going to be sacrificed. So the goat was being cleansed. Before offering, goat being cleansed. Now as the goat was being cleansed, the goat started laughing. And the goat started telling everyone present there in the sacrifice that, what are you doing? Why are you doing this sacrifice? Such fire sacrifices where you are doing all these things simply will bind you more to the cycle of birth, disease, old age and death. What is the name of the goat?
No name.
I thought you will say Madhava. So simply will bind you to the cycle of birth, disease, old age and death. So the goat is asking, what is the use of sacrificing me? What are you going to get? See my own position, it is telling. The goat is telling the Brahmana whose name was Madhava, see my own position. Now, the goat starts reciting its own past. It says that I was a Brahmana from a very pure Brahmin family. And I was also a very careful ritualist like you are. The goat told Madhava. Now the goat had the Brahmana had a wife. The goat whose previous life was a Brahmana had a wife who was not a goat. Okay. She was a human being. Okay. The wife wished to offer a goat to Durga Devi. So the goat, which was not a goat in the previous life, had a wife who wanted to give a goat to Durga Devi. Everyone clear? Very clear. Can anyone repeat this? Now why she wanted to give a gift to Durga Devi? Because she wanted her child to get cured of a disease. Now what happened? This goat, in the previous life who was a human being, got that goat to be slaughtered to Durga Devi because the wife wanted her to cure the son. You are with me now. So, when they bought that goat cursed that Brahmana who became a goat in this life. Who is talking to Madhava?
Madhava is incorrect.
Clear?
Who was a goat in the previous life?
Madhava was not a goat in his previous life. The goat was a Brahmana in the previous life. Now you are completely confused. Hands up if you are not confused, if you are following me. How many are confused? We'll handle exceptions only. You can read the Gita Mahatma. Where is our father? Adik bete Gita Mahatma. So that goat said that I also was a Brahmin in my previous life, and then my wife desired my child to get cured of a disease. So and then I slaughtered a goat. Now, before the Brahmana slaughtered that goat, the goat cursed the Brahmana, saying that my children will become fatherless. So therefore I curse you that by killing me, you too also will get the birth of a goat. And then he got the birth of a goat and was to be killed by in the town which is on the banks of the very good. Okay. So that goat was saying that by the grace of Lord Govinda, I am able to remember this previous birth, and therefore I am able to now narrate to you my past story. And the goat takes permission from Madhava. Can I tell you another story? But Madhava says, no, enough is enough. No, I was joking. Madhava says, please tell me another story. I know all of you want to hear that. Okay. So, the goat says that in Kurukshetra, there was a person called Chandra Sharma. In the holy land of Kurukshetra, there was a person named Chandra Sharma. He was a king. He was a Suryavanshi king. You know Suryavanshis, no? Sun god dynasty mein se aaya wo. Don't ask me why he was not Suryavarma. I don't know that answer. His name was Chandra Sharma. Sun god
Chandra Sharma.
Sharma. Did I say Varma? Okay. So Kurukshetra, Chandra Sharma, sun god dynasty. So this person, on the solar eclipse day, he wanted to give charity to one Brahmana. This time there is no goat and all that. He wanted to give charity to one Brahmana. So he took bath in the holy river because they consulted the senior authorities, dressed himself nicely, and then came to give this charity to this Brahmana. So in those days, you could give a Shudra in charity to a Brahmana, where the Shudra will then serve that Brahmana like that. So he got a Shudra. Now it is given that the Shudra was completely black in complexion like that. So he wanted to give the Shudra to this Brahmana. Now, just as he was about to give this Shudra to that Brahmana, the king, whose name was Chandra Sharma. Just as he was about to give this, two Chandalas. Chandala means what? Two Chandalas appeared from the black Shudra's body. One was male and the other was female. Like that. And both of them entered the body of the Brahmana who was receiving charity from King Chandra Sharma. Like that. They entered the body of this Brahmana. Now what happens when these people enter the body? When such people enter the body of somebody, what happens? The person starts becoming crazy, right? But nothing like that happened. Any guesses why?
Reading chapter regularly.
Beautiful. No, 9th chapter. I thought you said 10th chapter. So that Brahmana was completely undisturbed. Because as they were entering the body, then the Brahmana started chanting verses from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita by remembering Lord Krishna. Both are important. He just did not chant the 9th verse of Bhagavad Gita. He also remembered Lord Krishna. Otherwise, tape recorder also chants. But tape recorder doesn't remember Lord Krishna. So you are chanting and remembering. Now, as soon as that happened, the Vishnu Dutas appeared there and they chased away these two Chandalas. When the king saw this, whose name was Chandra Sharma, when he saw that, he said, who are these two personalities? These black people who disappeared as soon as you started chanting the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, remembering the Lord. So, the Brahmana said, that one was sin personified, papam, and the other was offense personified, aparadham. One was pap and the other was aparad. They were the personification, these two people. So therefore, what is the conclusion? By reciting the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, remembering Lord Krishna, one gets release from all fearful situations in life. And one's sins and aparads are removed. So the king, when he heard this, he dutifully started reciting the 9th chapter. He went back to Godhead. But who is the central character here?
Madhava.
Very good. I thought you would say goat. Who said goat? Okay. Madhava also heard this from the goat. Then Madhava also chanted 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita and went back to Godhead. The Falashruti.
The goat is left now.
What is that?
Goat is not sacrificed.
I don't know.
You are really following the story.
Good question. You have to ask Lord Shiva this question.
Goat must be spared. He lived his life.
What's that?
Goat must be spared. He lived his life.
Goat bach gaya na. Good observation.
Goat heard the pura life Gita. He went back because he knew the like a hero.
Oh, इसमें लिखा नहीं. We pray for the goat.
The goat in India, Punjab. There was one butcher called Sadhana. Kasai we call. He used to kill goat. One day he caught the goat. He wanted to kill her. He decided, before I kill her, I got to cut his private part first. He tried to take the knife, he tried to cut. The goat started laughing. He said, why are you laughing? He said, many times you become goat, many times I become goat, we killed you, you killed me. Now what are you doing? You're doing a naya nyuda dal raha hai, we katega na, so next time I will cut him. So that's the cycle become that. He left the butcher job and he become
Bhakta. It's a bit scary.
So he was because he become Bhakta, he got the inspiration from the Guru.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, so the most confidential knowledge. Let's go to verse number 1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which we shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence.
As a devotee hears more and more about the Supreme Lord, he becomes enlightened. This hearing process is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are full of potencies, and these potencies can be realized if topics regarding the Supreme Godhead are discussed among devotees. This can not be achieved by the association of mental speculators or academical scholars, for it is realized knowledge. The devotees are constantly engaged in the Supreme Lord's service. The Lord understands the mentality and sincerity of the particular living entity who is engaged in Krishna consciousness, and gives him the intelligence to understand the signs of Krishna in the association of devotees. Discussion of Krishna is very potent, and if a fortunate person has such association and tries to assimilate the knowledge, then he will surely make advancement towards spiritual realization. Lord Krishna, in order to encourage Arjuna to higher and higher elevation in his potent service, describes in this 9th chapter matter more confidential than any he has already disclosed. The very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter, is more or less an introduction to the rest of the book. And in the second and third chapters, the spiritual knowledge described is called confidential. Topics discussed in the 7th and 8th chapters are specifically related to devotional service, and because they bring enlightenment in Krishna consciousness, they are called more confidential. But the matter which are described in the 9th chapter deals with unalloyed, pure devotion. Therefore, this is called the most confidential. One who is situated in the most confidential knowledge of Krishna is naturally transcendental. He therefore has no material pangs. Although he is in the material world, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is said that although one who has a sincere desire to render loving service to the Supreme Lord is situated in the confidential state of conditional state of material existence, he is to be considered liberated. Similarly, we shall find in the Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, that anyone who is engaged in that way is a liberated person. Now, this first verse has specific significance. The words idam jnanam, this knowledge, refers to pure devotional service, which consists of nine different activities: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping, praying, obeying, maintaining friendship, and surrendering everything. By the practice of these 9 elements of devotional service, one is elevated to spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. When one's heart is thus cleared of material contamination, one can understand these signs of Krishna. Simply to understand that a living entity is not material is not sufficient. That may be the beginning of spiritual realization. But one should recognize the difference between activities of the body and the spiritual activities of one who understands that he is not the body.
Thank you, Balaji. Mahesh.
In the 7th chapter, we have already discussed the opulent potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his different energies, the inferior and superior natures, and all this material manifestation. Now in chapter 9, the glories of the Lord will be delineated. The Sanskrit word Ananshwaye is also very significant. Generally, the commentators, even if they are high scholarly, are all envious of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the most erudite scholars write on Bhagavad Gita very inaccurately because they are envious of Krishna. Their commentaries are useless. The commentaries given by the devotees of the Lord are bona fide. No one can explain Bhagavad Gita or give perfect knowledge of Krishna if he is envious. One who criticizes the character of Krishna without knowing him is a fool. So much commentary should be very carefully avoided. For one who understands that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the pure and transcendental personality, these chapters will be very beneficial.
What are the points here?
Different levels of confidential knowledge that is being discussed in the Bhagavad Gita. So 2nd and 3rd chapters, they give some basic level of information. The ones that are discussed in the 9th chapter are the highest and purest, which talks about pure devotional service.
So there is a good point here. It says that just understanding that we are not the body but we are the soul is not enough. We have to act on the platform of eternal soul.
There are different commentaries given by different scholars. The one who is not devotee, we should not read those commentaries because they won't be able to give us the total meaning, won't be able to explain.
So, it is mentioned that chapter 7 and chapter 9 share a lot of themes, common themes. There are 4 themes that are common to chapter 7 as well as chapter 9. Same theme is being spoken here also. First is the relationship between Lord Krishna and material nature. This is one theme which also was there in chapter 8, which is also going to come in chapter 9. What is that first theme? Relationship between Lord Krishna and material nature, between Bhagavan and Prakriti. The second as theme is Lord Krishna's potency within matter. How Lord Krishna is present within matter. Third is worship of demigods vis-a-vis worship of Lord Krishna. This is the third theme which is common across 7th chapter and 9th chapter. And the fourth is a comparison of impersonalist and personalist philosophy. This is also there. So these four themes are common. Now, despite these four themes being common, chapter 9 is still called as most confidential knowledge. Because chapter 9 deals with Akinchana Bhakti, pure, unalloyed. There is no trace of jnana, karma, everything. Therefore, it is called most confidential. Unalloyed, pure Bhakti. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he makes a comment that knowledge which is useful for liberation, is taught in the 2nd and 3rd chapters. That knowledge is also confidential. That knowledge which is useful for liberation, that is also confidential knowledge. Confidential means what? That not many people know about. That's what is called confidential. So that knowledge was also confidential, which was used for liberation. Then in chapter 7 and 8, that knowledge which was used for attaining me, which is Lord Krishna, was even more confidential than that which was in chapter 2 and 3. Because by such knowledge which chapter 7 and 8 were giving us, the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be known. That is why they are more confidential. Now in this chapter, also knowledge is being spoken of. You see, it is mentioned the most confidential knowledge, and there is a verse which is coming up next verse, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. Vidya means knowledge. So in this chapter also knowledge is being spoken of. But the only difference is here, wherever we see the word knowledge, it's a synonym for bhakti. So remove the word knowledge and put bhakti. Like that. So it's like that. So that is why this chapter is called as most confidential knowledge. It is not the same knowledge, therefore, which was described in the earlier sections, in the first 6 chapters. Because the first 6 chapters, knowledge and bhakti coexisted. But in this chapter, when the word knowledge is mentioned, it is knowledge which is only for the purpose of bhakti. Otherwise, that knowledge has got no meaning. It's like that. That is why it's called most confidential knowledge. Now, Lord Krishna uses this word, my dear Arjuna, because you are non-envious of me. See the translation. Because you are non-envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge. So, Bhurijan Prabhu writes that Lord Krishna, without any prompting by Arjuna, there is nothing that has happened between chapter 8 and chapter 9, if you see. Arjuna has not asked any new question. But without his prompting, then Lord has now begun to explain to Arjuna Ananya Bhakti. He's begun to explain in detail about Ananya Bhakti. Ananya means what? Fixation which is solely fixed on the Lord. No other things other than the Lord. It is called Ananya Bhakti. Where there is no other diversion. So the Lord is seamlessly continuing that topic. No more questions from Arjuna at this stage. So without prompting, the Lord is telling, talking about Ananya Bhakti, which surpasses all the other paths of Bhakti. And in chapter 9, the Lord is explaining how to become an Ananya Bhakta. Lord is explaining what? How to become a pure devotee of the Lord. So how to become a pure devotee of the Lord? What is the first step that the Lord is explaining here? In this verse?
Not be envious.
Why?
Non-envious.
Yeah, correct. That is a mood. Because he was non-envious, the Lord, without prompting, is explaining this knowledge to him. But what should Arjuna do?
Shravanam Kirtanam.
Which is the first one?
Shravanam.
See, if you see, the verse begins with what? Where does it mention? You see, very early on it comes. As a devotee hears more and more about the Supreme Lord. So, the emphasis starts with the power of hearing. So, Ananya Bhakti starts with what? Hearing. For hearing, what we should have?
MP3 player.
Empty MP3 player or loaded with lectures? What kind of lectures? Spiritual lectures. Not Michael Jackson. Like that. MP3 players are always loaded. So we must have that. And we must take that MP3 player and hear it every day. If we don't do that, then we cannot progress towards the path of Ananya Bhakti. Is there anyone who is hearing lectures every day here? Srinivas Prabhu, you raised your hand in Mill Park program. Yes. So I know, yeah. There are few people who are listening.
Not full lecture every day, but how much ever.
Yeah, some hearing is happening every day. Everyone is hearing something every day. 100%. If anyone is not hearing something every day, then there is a problem. Such a person cannot progress on the path of Ananya Bhakti. Now, hearing doesn't mean just one line. It's not like that. Prabhu, my wife was just saying that Krishna is Supreme Personality of God. When she was cooking, I heard it. My hearing is over for that.
Still they get some benefit, Prabhu. Anyway.
Some benefit will be there. But it will be a very slow process.
Manda process.
Yeah, slow process it will be. So we cannot take the philosophy conveniently. Hearing has to be, we had discussed, no? Yeah, confidential, daily confidential hearing, that must be done. And if we are not doing that, we will find that the material world will become more and more attractive. In fact, today in Mill Park program, we took that verse, which was that? Bhoktaram yagya tapasham sarva loka maheshwara. We did that verse. As a part of that, we saw that the process of bhakti must be performed properly for that process to give us the desired results. If it's not performed properly, then it will not give the desired results. So that hearing must be very attentive, and preferably that hearing must be accompanied by making notes. That hearing must be accompanied by a lot of introspection. Not that idhar se suna, idhar se chala gaya. The hearing must go inside and it must start processing within the heart. Maharaj is saying, Trinadapi sunichena tarori. Then we have to hear, not that, oh yeah, tell to somebody. Maharaj told Trinadapi sunichena tarori. Also meditate on that, saying, okay, where am I going wrong today? What are all the situations that I have not practiced it in today's life? Like that. So keep hearing that. But if we don't hear, there is nobody to remind anyway. Like that. So no progress will happen. So hearing is most important. So this verse, the first 3 verses of this chapter glorify the entire chapter in that sense. The first 3 verses glorify the chapter has got 34 verses on. So the first 3 chapters glorify the entire contents. And this specific verse, which is verse 1 of the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, makes 3 important points, which will come in your exam. Please note down. 5 marks for each point, 15 marks question. It will come. The first one, what happened? That was for him. The first point is, one becomes advanced by hearing about Lord Krishna. The first point is, one becomes advanced by hearing about Lord Krishna. So what is the secret of advancement in devotional service? Hearing. If we are not doing that, we will stagnate in bhakti. Then there will be other subject matters for hearing. Okay? If we don't fill our time with hearing Krishna consciousness, then we will have other subject matters to hear. Gramya Katha. In Gujarati it's called as Panchat. Panchat will start attracting us. Panchat bolte hain, Gujarati mein, mujhe pata nahi. My wife always tells me that.
A lot of the time this hearing happens inside the brain rather than inside the heart.
Which Krishna Katha or Panchat?
Krishna Whatever lectures that you listen to, you hear it inside your brain rather than in your heart. So how do we improve that?
What hearing happens inside the brain?
Yeah, means you start to analyze the...
Yeah, analysis will happen inside the brain. Yeah. Or you can discuss with someone. That I heard this, can we discuss how we can implement this in our lives? Or it can happen inside the brain, and then we can take some resolutions that in future if I am faced with this situation, I'll apply this principle which I heard today.
That's where the problem is that they recall.
To recall?
Yeah, or whatever you're listening to or whatever you're reading to, how do you recall at a precise moment of it?
You may not be able to recall also.
Yeah.
It's not possible. But the solution is what? Keep hearing. Okay. Hear the same lecture many times. Govind Prabhu's lecture on that air crash. I heard many times before I could understand what he's talking. And Govind Prabhu's lectures typically it happens for me at least. I have to hear it 2-3 times to be able to understand exactly what he's trying to say. Like that. Because it's very deep. Not only that, by hearing many times, I feel more motivated to adopt some principle that he's talking. Like that. Yeah. So repeated hearing of the same lecture. You don't need to hear new lectures all the time. You can hear the same lecture many times till it starts running in our system. For example, the life story of Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. You can hear it many times. There are a lot of lessons from that for all of us. Every day, even if we hear that one lecture, that will be good enough for this lifetime. Same lecture every day. If we hear and start practicing, that's good enough. In devotional service, it's not about the variety of hearing. It's about the depth of assimilation, having heard something. Variety of hearing will help when we are preaching. For example, we can quote from Gaurang Prabhu's lecture, we can quote from Kadambakaran Maharaj's lecture, we can quote from Devamrit Swami's lecture, and we can, it's very effective. But at the end of the day, for our personal application, it's the depth to which we are able to absorb even one line. So when Sankarshan Das Adhikari Maharaj is saying, no illicit sex even within the institution of marriage, that one line is enough, that one guideline is enough for many people for one lifetime to keep meditating and trying to follow. Correct? Now why do we need to hear something more than that? That one instruction is so powerful. Like that. So it's a question of taking line by line and assimilating and trying to implement. For example, if your spiritual master tells you, be a good example. Now that one line is enough. Every transaction with every devotee, be a good example. Be a good example. Be a good example. That one instruction is enough for the entire lifetime in that sense. You don't need any more. In fact, you don't need to hear anything more. But of course, we need to hear. As much as we say this, we need to hear regularly. Because devotees will, in hearing lectures, many times devotees also quote examples of other devotees who have been able to follow that instruction. So that way we will benefit always. And hearing a lecture purifies the consciousness. That is the greatest thing. I remember that whenever my hearing is very serious and I am getting into work, then my consciousness is completely different than when I am not hearing and I am just trying to finish my rounds and then getting into work. Because anyway, tram chanting is inattentive. So the days that happens and I get into work, then the feeling is not the same. But when I am hearing, and what I do is the days that I am hearing, actually I walk into the office, I sit, I log in my machine and then I remove that. And then that consciousness is there throughout the day, it's there. And some powerful instructions playing. And again, when you leave the office, immediately plug it back into your ears till you go home. And then when you go home also, your consciousness is very clear. And then the wife has also heard a lecture, the husband has heard a lecture. So then the discussion will be what?
About Krishna Katha.
Not about? Tell me something spicy. What's happening today? But when that is not there, then it has to be filled with some conversation. So then it will be filled with all other conversation. Like that. So by hearing, one becomes advanced. Especially by hearing in the association of devotees. There is a verse, again, if someone has, I think it is Satam Prasangat Mama Virya Samvido Bhavanti Hrit Karna Rasayana Katha Tad Joshanad Asu Apavarga Vartmani Shraddha Ratir Bhaktir Anukrameshyati. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavad. How do you know this verse? Good. Okay. Can you know the meaning of this verse?
First few words.
Satam Prasangan. S-A-T-A-M. Satam Prasangan. P-R-A-S-A-N-G-A-N. Satam Prasangan. No, Srimad Bhagavad. Which verse, which canto of Srimad Bhagavad? Third or?
325-25.
Yeah, 325-25. So let's read this. Please listen carefully. In the association of pure devotees. Hearing must be in the association of pure devotees. In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. Bhavanti Hrit Karna Rasayana Katha. This Rasayana Katha is good for the Hridaya. Bhavanti Hrit Karna. Karna means? Hearing. Kan. Satam Prasangat. Satam means what? In the association of people who are in mode of Satam Prasangat. In that association of saintly personalities, Mama Virya Samvida. It's like a samvad of who? Lord Krishna. Discussion. Mama Virya Samvida. Bhavanti Hrit Karna Rasayana Katha. So, such discussions are very pleasing and satisfying to the ear as well as the heart. By cultivating such knowledge of the pastimes of the Lord and the philosophy of Krishna Consciousness, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation. And thereafter, he is freed. And his attraction becomes fixed. His attraction to Krishna becomes fixed. Then, when that attraction to Krishna becomes fixed, then real devotion and devotional service begin. When the attraction becomes fixed, then real devotion and devotional service begin. That is called as Raganuga Bhakti. Right now what is happening? We are doing Bhakti because we are taken above. That is why we finish rounds. We don't chant. There is a difference between finishing rounds and chanting or completing. Have you completed your rounds? It's like that. We don't complete rounds. Like that. It's like the wife telling the husband, I have served you the quota of 3 times food today. You say, where is the love element here? Kiya na, abhi 3 baar to gaya. Legally I am compliant. No, it's not like that. So, Bhakti is not a compliance process. Bhakti is about the heart. So, when the attraction for Lord Krishna develops by constant hearing in the association of pure devotees, then we become fixed in our attraction to Krishna, not wavering. Sometimes Krishna looks good, sometimes Mahendra Singh Dhoni will look good. Not like that. You understand? Not cricket is looking good or cinema is looking good, like that. So fixed in that attraction. And when that happens, real devotional service begins. Apavarga Vartmani. The other opposite of that is what? Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. That is what problem for most of us. Cycle of birth. This is Apavarga Vartmani. Like that. So, this verse makes 3 points. First point is one becomes advanced by hearing about Lord Krishna. Next is one must be non-envious to hear properly. If we are envious, then we cannot hear properly. If we are envious, we will be thinking about how people have wronged us, Why congregation mein, why some people are behaving in particular way, why that person is more successful than I am. With all these thoughts preoccupied in our mind, with all this kachara, dirt inside, then we will not be able to hear properly. The MP3 player will be plugged here, but we'll be thinking of how that devotee, how I can get back at that fellow. Like that. And in the ear, what is going on? Trinadapi Sunichana, Tororeva Saishnanda is going on, but I am hearing it, but I am not hearing it because my mind is somewhere else.
You're not listening it.
Yeah, that is because of envy, that we are meditating always on other things. So one must become non-envious to hear properly. That is why Lord Krishna is saying, my dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this knowledge. Third point is, one becomes free from material miseries when he hears properly and cultivates devotional practices. One will become completely free from material miseries. We become advanced. You have to be non-envious, and then we will become free from material miseries also and cultivate devotional service. Okay. So these are the points in number 1. Now we come to one of the most important verses of Bhagavad Gita. Very famous verse. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Vitram Idam Uttamam, Pratyaksha Avagamam Dharmyam, Susukam Gatum. In fact, for me personally, this is my most favorite verse from the Bhagavad Gita. The reason is that I don't know how many classes I have myself given on only this verse. Every time that I have to give an extempore class, I have no idea, then this is a good verse to give. Because this verse, in my view may not be worth 20 cents, but still, is my humble realization that this verse covers the summum bonum of the bhakti process for me. Personally, for me it does. I don't know if it does for you, but for me it does. Because it covers bhakti from all angles. It covers various aspects of bhakti. Let us read this. This knowledge is the king of education. Raja Vidya. It's very easy to buy this verse in that sense. Raja Vidya, king of education. Raja means king, Vidya means education. The most secret of all secrets. Secret means Guhyam. The king of all secrets is what? Raja Guhyam. The king of all knowledge is Raja Vidya. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. It is the purest of knowledge. Means Pavitram. Right? Idam Uttamam. Purest of all knowledge. Uttamam and Pavitram. Pavitram Idam Uttamam. Because it gives direct perception of the self by realization. Pratyaksha Avagamam. Pratyaksha. Pratyaksha Praman means what? Direct evidence. So Pratyaksha Avagamam. It gives direct evidence by self-perception or self-realization. Direct perception by self-realization. And it is Pratyaksha Avagamam Dharmam. Dharmyam. Which means it is the perfection of dharma, of religion. Which one? This knowledge is of bhakti, is the highest knowledge, Raja Vidya. It's the most confidential knowledge, Raja Guhyam. It is the most purest, Pavitram Idam Uttamam. And it gives direct perception by self-relation. Pratyaksha Avagamam, and it is the perfection of religion, which is dharma. Pratyaksha Avagamam Dharmyam. And then Susukam, it is joyfully performed, and Avyayam, which means koi vyatya hi nahi hai usme. It is everlasting. Like that. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. So in one sense it encompasses the whole gamut of the culture or aspects of Krishna consciousness. Everything is there in this. And it is one of the longest purports that Prabhupada writes to this verse in Bhagavad Gita, if you see. No? It runs through 2-3 pages, I think. Huh? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, almost 5 pages purport Prabhupada is writing. So that means it's a very important verse. It is mentioned, Gesha Prabhu is also telling us that if Prabhupada writes a very long purport, that means it's a very important verse. Now why I am telling this specifically to all of you is because if any of you are not prepared to give a lecture, and if you have to give a spontaneous class, choose this verse. You can just go on speaking about this verse. And just read this one purport many times. It will run in your bloodstream after that. And then you can give class anywhere. Somebody invites you, Ganesh Chaturthi, Ganesh Pandal, can you give class? Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya. Somebody invites you somewhere else, Sai Baba temple, book distribution, you describe, you tell this verse. Even if you have prepared nothing, this verse is good enough to give a class on. So always use this verse like that. Let's read this verse one by one. We have 4 minutes, at least we'll complete one paragraph, the next 5 minutes. Okay, who wants to read fast? First, fast, express trade. Only first paragraph.
This chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called the King of Education because it is the essence of all doctrines and philosophies explained before. Among the principal philosophers in India are Gautama, Kanada, Kapila, Yajnavalkya, Sandilya and Vaishwanara. And finally there is Vyasadeva, the author of Vedanta Sutra. So there is no dearth of knowledge in the field of philosophy or transcendental knowledge. Now the Lord says that this 9th chapter is the king of all such knowledge. The essence of all knowledge that can be derived from the study of the Vedas and different kinds of philosophy. It is the most confidential because confidential or transcendental knowledge involves understanding the difference between the soul and the body. And the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service.
Next paragraph.
Generally, people are not educated in this confidential knowledge. They are educated in external knowledge. As far as ordinary education is concerned, people are involved with so many departments: politics, sociology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, etc. There are so many departments of knowledge all over the world and many huge universities, but there is unfortunately no university or educational institution where the science of spirit and soul is instructed. Yet, the soul is the most important part of the body. Without the presence of the soul, the body has no value. Still, people are placing great stress on bodily necessities of life, not caring for the vital soul.
Okay, go on reading the next paragraph also.
The Bhagavad Gita, especially from the 2nd chapter on, stresses the importance of the soul. In the very beginning, the Lord says that this body is perishable and that the soul is not perishable. That is a confidential part of knowledge. Simply knowing that the spirit soul is different from this body and that its nature is immutable, indestructible and eternal. But that gives no positive information about the soul. Sometimes people are under the impression that the soul is different from the body and that when the body is finished or one is liberated from the body, the soul remains in a void and becomes impersonal. But actually, that is not the fact. How can the soul, which is so active within the body, be inactive after being liberated from the body? It's always active. If it is eternal, then it's eternally active. And its activities in the spiritual kingdom are the most confidential part of the spiritual knowledge. These activities of the spirit soul are therefore indicated here as constituting the king of all knowledge, the most confidential part of all knowledge.
Okay. So how many we have covered by reading this? 2 parts. We have covered Raja Vidya and Raja Guhyam. These 2 parts are covered. Okay. Now what is Raja Vidya after hearing this? Just talk about the Raja Vidya part. Why is it called as Raja Vidya?
Difference between them.
It's been touched upon by so many philosophers, great thinkers, and even people who have done extensive devotional service like Vyasadeva.
It is the essence of all knowledge. Altogether, that is
correct. It is the essence of all knowledge. It is the essence of all scriptures. This knowledge is the essence of all scriptures. Ultimately, the essence of all scriptures is that which culminates in Bhakti. The essence of all the Vedas is the Vedanta Sutra. The essence of Vedanta Sutra is Srimad Bhagavatam. And the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam is the Brihad Bhagavatamrit. You can say like that. But anyway, we keep it at Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the essence. So Srimad Bhagavatam speaks about unalloyed bhakti. Nirmat Saranam Satam. Nirmat Saranam means what? Completely non-envious. Srimad Bhagavatam is for the people who are completely non-envious, which means Uttama Bhakti can only exist where there is no envy. And here also Lord Krishna is opening the paragraph that you are not envious, therefore I am going to give you that knowledge which otherwise cannot be given to anyone who is even having the slight trace of envy. So this knowledge is very special because this is the essence of all the scriptures. So it is Raja Vidya. Raja Guhyam. Why is it Raja Guhyam? Because Guhyam means confidential. Confidential means most people don't know. Why most people don't know this knowledge? Because it is never taught in the universities and colleges. What is that knowledge which is not taught in universities and colleges?
Activities of the soul. It's
Not what to speak of activities of the soul. It is not even taught that you are soul. People don't know that they are the spirit soul. So they have to be told that they are the spirit soul. By giving the three famous examples, which we always do. Everyone knows that, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3. Anyone who doesn't know?
Parts of the body.
Living and dead body.
Touching yourself everywhere and asking, what is this? This is my nose, my ear. You know that, no? That's the first example, by which you will know that everything belongs to you. So who are you? If you are not your nose is yours, so who are you? So that's one example by which you will know that you are not the body at least. Right? The second one is what? Difference between a living body and a dead body. People say he has passed away. If he was that body, then where has he passed away? Right? So he has passed away. That means he was not that body. Because the body has not passed away. Body is right in front of us. Still people say that. So which means there is something inside that body, some personality inside who is not resident inside that anymore. So by that we again know that there is something, there is a soul. Third is that this body keeps changing even within this lifetime. Every 7 years. Body is a collection of cells. What to speak of death? Body changes even during lifetime. But it doesn't mean our name changes after every 7 years. Or our identity changes. We are the same person. So even in this lifetime, there is a constant and then there is a variable. What is constant is the soul. Okay. So this knowledge is not taught anywhere in the colleges and universities. Even if the Mayavadis also know that we are the soul. But so what is most confidential about the soul? That the soul does not cease to exist. There are three types of people. The Shunyavadis, the Mayavadis and the Bhaktas. The Shunyavadi, they say that the soul enters into void. So there is nothingness for the soul. You will become nothing at the end of the day. No? But that is not Vedic. Correct? The Mayavadis say that the soul, you itself is God. You will realize that. That is Mayavadi philosophy. But the most confidential knowledge is what? That no. Or they may say that the soul, ultimately, the highest realization is that the soul is Brahman. So therefore you will become one with Brahman in the light, Brahma Jyoti. But no, the confidentiality part is where beyond that Brahman. Just like the heroine wears that, what is that? Ghungat. वो घूंघट निकालते हैं तो confidential knowledge is revealed. Whether she looks like, heroine or whether she looks like, Shurpanaka. That is revealed only after the ghungat is removed like that. So behind that veil of Brahman, Brahma Jyoti, what is there? That personality. Revelation of that personality, his holy dham and the pastimes thereof, that is the highest knowledge. It's like when you see a train approaching, all you are seeing initially in the dark is a light which is approaching. So you think that train is light. When the train comes closer, then you will see so many compartments as small boxes. Then you will start getting another realization that it is not only light, but it is a long train which has got so many boxes. But when the train stops and you look inside that box, then you will say, oh my God, somebody is sleeping, somebody is playing with his child, somebody is eating, somebody is dancing. So many activities are there within that one box. So that is the highest realization. And that is confidential up until that time that you actually, the train comes in front of you and you actually see what's happening inside. So that is the pastimes of the Lord, which happens behind the curtain of Brahman in the Vaikuntha Loka. And that knowledge is even hidden to the Jnana Yogis. So that is why it is the most confidential knowledge. What to speak of mundane people? Even Jnana Yogis don't have access to that. So most confidential knowledge. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. That's the essence of what Prabhupada is trying to capture here. Okay, I'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.